Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views and analysis. WIONews.com. World is one.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground at Gravitas? We don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching WION World is One with me, Raisha Sehgal. There's lots lined up, but first a quick check on the headlines that we are tracking at this hour. Israel marks day of paralysis over judicial overhaul as Parliament ratifies new law limiting conditions for Netanyahu's ouster. Critics say new law will shield the PM from any fallout from his corruption trials. Brigadier Mustafa Kamal Barki of the Inter-Services Intelligence, Pakistan's main spy agency, killed in an encounter with militants. 70 members of the high-ranking official also injured in the South Waziristan encounter. Hindenburg Research will soon release a new report on another target the US short seller said in a tweet a few hours ago without offering any more details on it. The world's first 3D printed rocket launches successfully marks a step forward for the California company behind the innovative spacecraft, though it fails to reach the orbit. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach defends his organization's stance on Russia amid the pro-Ukraine protest. He says that they can't be referees in political disputes. And a top focus on WION at this hour. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's move to push the judicial reform bills is backfiring at the government. Israel has been paralyzed for over 10 weeks now. Residents are taking to the streets demonstrating the government's proposed judicial reforms. A demonstration also took place outside the home of Arya Deri, an ally of Prime Minister Netanyahu. The judicial reform bills, which seek to restrict the powers of the judiciary, were met with massive resistance in the country. Reservists also unveiled banners on the statue of Theodore Herzl at the entrance of the coastal city of Herzliya. The banners had the phrase, and I'm quoting here, "If you will, democracy will win, and it's not a dream, it's a revolution." Another fresh set of demonstrations are planned for Thursday, and 500,000 people are expected to be on the streets of major Israeli cities, on highways, and also outside the homes of coalition members. The Israeli parliament on Thursday ratified a bill that would shield Prime Minister Netanyahu from being ousted. The Knesset approved the bill under which prime ministers can be deemed unfit. This would likely ensure that Netanyahu does not suffer the fallout from any of the corruption trials against him. On the other hand, the opposition and anger against the judicial reforms is spreading throughout the defense forces. On Wednesday, reports said that reservist soldiers from multiple units declared that they would not show up for duty. As per ground reports, the Israeli Defense Force has identified a significant drop in the number of ground force troops reporting for reserve duty. 700 reservists in the Nahal Brigade are not reporting for duty. 100 officers from the Armoured Corps were dismissed after they did not report to work as well. 100 senior reservists, 180 pilots, 50 controllers, 40 drone operators from the Air Force, Brothers in Arms, the reservist organization in the IDF, and around 43% of the 551st Paratroopers Brigade did not report for duty this week. Now, one of the founding members of Brothers in Arms said that the army was disintegrating before the defense minister's eyes. He said that he expects the defense minister to stand up and say that he will not vote for the laws. The protests are getting more intense and further paralyzing Israel, and the government does not seem to want to go down regarding the controversial laws. Reservists in the defense forces have warned the government that they will not be able to serve in an undemocratic Israel, which they claim the country will become under the Netanyahu government's rule. For more on this, our correspondent Jody Cohen has sent us this report from Tel Aviv. Take a look.
I'm by the landmark Azrieli Towers, where the largest protest is going to be taking place on Thursday in Tel Aviv. This has been billed as a day of paralysis, which seems to be an escalation in the language from the previous days of disruption that we've seen. Up to 500,000 people are expected to take to the streets in protest against the government's judicial reform proposals. We're seeing a handmade protest. You can see the organisers behind me. We've seen protests outside the homes of coalition ministers. There's going to be a march to the ultra-Orthodox city of Bnei Brak, where they largely support the judicial reform proposals. And we're going to be seeing protests at the airport, where Prime Minister Netanyahu is expected to travel to the UK for meetings with the Prime Minister. So lots of protests being planned for Thursday. This is Jody Cohen for WION World is One.
In other global news that we are tracking at this hour, on Tuesday, Brigadier Mustafa Kamal Barki of the Inter-Services Intelligence, which is Pakistan's main spy agency, was killed in an encounter with the militants. 70 members of the high-ranking Pakistani intelligence official were also injured in the South Waziristan encounter. Now, South Waziristan is a mountainous region that borders Afghanistan and has long been a hotbed of terrorists. Pakistani military media wing said that the intense firing was exchanged with the militants, and 2 of Barki's team members were in critical condition. The last rites of Brigadier Barki were held yesterday. Pakistan's president, prime minister and the top military officials attended the funeral. Pakistan has seen a resurgence of militant attacks since late last year. In January, a deadly bombing of a mosque in the city of Peshawar killed over 100 people, most of whom were police personnel. Peshawar is the capital of Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. South Waziristan, where Tuesday's encounter transpired, is also in the same province. In November, Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan called off a shaky ceasefire agreed with the Pakistan government. The armed group ordered fighters to stage attacks across the country. Pakistan has seen a surge in attacks from the Afghan side of the border following the Taliban takeover in 2021. Almost all Afghan governments have refused to accept the colonial-era border demarcation, the Durand Line, which runs through the mountainous border, splitting tribes on either side. The border dispute has led to periodic skirmishes and tensions between Pakistan and the Afghanistan forces. Pakistan has fenced a major portion of its border to prevent an influx of militants and migrants. As of now, Pakistan's military have not given reasons for Brigadier Barki's presence in the border area. No group has taken responsibility, and Pakistan's military have not named the perpetrators either. In other global news, ending a 15-hour standoff, Thai police shot dead a gunman who killed 3 people and wounded 3 others. The police found a Glock pistol and 2 magazines at the scene, but believed that the man had more weapons with him. On Wednesday, the shooter started firing in Phetchaburi, which is about 100 kilometers southwest of Bangkok. The police later surrounded the house where the shooter was in. The standoff ended early Thursday when the armed police stormed the building and killed the gunman. The gunman has not been named yet, but as per reports by the local media, it is supposed to be a 29-year-old former national park official. Thailand has high rates of gun ownership. There has been a steady number of violent incidents in the past 12 months in the country. In October, at least 36 were killed in a child care center massacre, including dozens of kids. Meanwhile, Paris is boiling with demonstrations over French President Emmanuel Macron's unpopular pension reforms. The demonstrations are still continuing and the tensions are further likely to rise. The unions have again called for nationwide protests. The Paris municipal garbage collectors also pledged to carry on strike until Monday. According to the union sources, half of all high-speed trains would be cancelled. Blockades at oil refineries will also continue. That could create severe fuel shortages. But despite massive discontentment in the country, Macron has refused to roll back the proposed plan.
So yes, there aren't 100 solutions if we want the pension system to be balanced. It no longer is. And the more we wait, the more it will get worse. And so this reform is necessary. And I say this to the French people. I don't enjoy doing this.
The pension reforms aim to raise the retirement age from the current 62 to 64 years. Macron emphasized that the bill must be implemented by the end of this year. He made a distinction in his interview between the union-organized protests and demonstrations by small mobile groups. He said that he views unions' protest as legitimate, but called out groups setting fire to garbage bins. The president added that he is ready to reopen discussions with the unions, but would stand firm. This has sparked further anger among the protesters in the country.
n'est pas du tout convaincu, même pire, elle a attisé le feu, attisé la haine des travailleurs en lutte. Comment entendre que la rue n'a pas de légitimité? Comment entendre que la réforme des retraites, malgré toute la contestation, va continuer à être mise en place? Comment légitimer ce déni de démocratie de par ces annonces? Non, on a plus attisé la haine, attisé les revendications et attisé le fait que l'on estime que cette réforme injustifiée doit être retirée pour que l'apaisement social soit réel.
The demonstrations in the country have become intense since the reform bill was pushed through parliament without a vote last week. Paris also witnessed violent protests in recent days marked by scuffles with police and barricades and also rubbish bins being set ablaze. The demonstrators also blocked train stations in the southern cities of Nice on Wednesday. Now, such disruptions could mar the planned visit of King Charles III, who is due to arrive in France on Sunday for his first state visit since becoming the monarch. Now let's see what's making news in the world of business. Hindenburg Research tweeted on Thursday that it will release a new report soon. But the US research firm did not give any details on who the next target is. The tweet only said, "Another big one." The Spectator Index tweeted that a big new report is coming soon from Hindenburg Research, after the previous report on India's Adani Group caused a widespread stock market sell-off and price drop. The latest news comes 2 months after the US research firm's previous report accusing the Adani Group of fraud and tax manipulation. Adani Group stock lost over $145 billion in market value at one point after the Hindenburg report was released. But since those deep losses, shares of the Indian businesses firms have recovered somewhat, although they're still in the red compared to trades before the US short sellers report on January 24th. Hindenburg's latest claim of another big one comes at a time when the United States is in the midst of a banking turmoil. The recent failures of US banks and the 167-year-old Swiss bank Credit Suisse have weighed heavily on the financial markets in the country, wiping out billions of dollars. Previously, the Twitter users had criticized Hindenburg for being biased, especially after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, pointing out that the research firm had been silent about the failure of major US banks. Well, could it be a bank? For now, there is no clarity on the next target. Meanwhile, Bangladesh has opened its first submarine base at Pikhwa district of Cox's Bazar. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina inaugurated the submarine base BNS Sheikh Hasina while describing the occasion as a proud chapter in the history of the Bangladeshi Navy. The government of Bangladesh signed an agreement with China in September 2019 for the construction of this submarine base. Its strategic location will enable the submarines to move quickly and safely in case of need. Well, it's built at a cost of $1.21 billion. The base can house up to 8 warships and 6 submarines altogether. Bangladesh's economy is highly reliant on its ocean resources. But due to issues like piracy and lack of marine security, the growth of its blue economy has been hampered. Especially with commissioning of a submarine station, the island nation can now monitor its coastal waterways better and also deter any kind of illegal activities. Hasina's administration has been taking steps to put Forces Goal 2030 into practice since taking office in 2009. Now, Forces Goal 2030, it was formulated in line with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's defense policy of 1974. They aim to modernize the armed forces according to the changing needs of time. The government has also been incorporating more warships into Navy while strengthening the operational capacity of the existing ones. In the last 14 years, 31 warships, including 4 frigates, 6 corvettes, 4 large patrol craft, 5 patrol craft and 2 training ships have been added. Meanwhile, as the holy month of Ramadan begins, people in Bangladesh and Pakistan are feeling the pinch of inflation. The food and energy prices have been increasing around the world due to Russia's war in Ukraine and also the climate change-related events that have hampered the global economy at the moment. Residents in the Bangladeshi capital Dhaka say that they are struggling with the rising cost of living. Residents are also hit by high food prices during preparations for the Muslim fasting month. Listen in.
রোজার মাস আসতেছে আমরা হয়তো একটু ভালো মন্দ খাইতে চাই কিন্তু আমরা যদি এখন এই দামের জন্য না খাইতে পারি তাহলে আমরা এই রোজার মাস আমরা এত পরিশ্রম করব আমাদের কাছে সরকারের কাছে একটাই আবেদন
The local market vendors are also complaining that they are seeing fewer customers and that the businesses are not going well.
বর্তমানে ব্যবসা নিম্নগতির মধ্যে আছে ব্যবসা বাণিজ্য তেমন চলতে আছে না জিনিসপত্রের দাম তো আগেই দাম সব কিছুর দাম বাড়ছে বর্তমানে যে জিনিসপত্র সবই আছে কিন্তু জিনিসপত্রের দাম বেশি ক্রেতা একদম শূন্য ক্রেতা খুবই কম একমাত্র কারণ বোঝা যাচ্ছে যে অর্থনৈতিক সমস্যার জন্যই এরকম হইতেছে
Now, the situation is also very similar in Pakistan, which is already reeling under severe economic crisis and the aftermath of the devastating floods that has ravaged the country since last year. Pakistanis say that they are struggling to put food on their table.
आम आदमी की ना पहुंच से अब हर चीज़ दूर हो गई हुई है। एक गरीब आदमी जो है ना वो बहुत मुश्किल से गुजारा कर रहा है ज़िंदगी का।
आटा इतना महंगा हो रहा है, 600 रुपये वाला बोरा 1200 रुपये का इन्होंने डाल दिया। अभी रमज़ान तो शुरू हुआ नहीं है, रमज़ान आया था तो ये तो चीज़ें और ही महंगी हो रही थी।
पहले कम था, टमाटर भी सस्ते, सब चीज़ें सस्ती थी। अभी सब कुछ महंगा हो चुका है, डबल रेट हो चुके हैं, ज़्यादा महंगाई हो गई इस वजह से कि रमज़ान आ रहा है जल्दी।
With the holy month of Ramadan, the people here in one of busiest markets of Pakistan say that the prices of commodities have been doubled, and with rising inflation, they call on the government to act and put in place subsidy measures so that the common people can benefit from it in the holy month of Ramadan. Anas Malik, Islamabad, Pakistan for WION. World is one.
Meanwhile, the artificial intelligence has been the buzzword for quite some time now. There is a lot of excitement around the emerging technology. There's some concerns as well. So how are governments around the world adapting to it? While speaking to WION's Vikram Chandra for the India story, India's Minister of State of Information Technology, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, shared his insights on this issue. Listen in.
Well, in your case, of course, you're also the Minister of Skill Development. So the crucial parts of that are, how will AI be, for example, how do you give people the skills in AI? How do you educate people and how do you use AI effectively? And it's not just to do my homework, I got ChatGPT to do my homework, which is one of the ways of doing it.
Yeah.
We have to be able to skill people effectively. This is the new powerful technology. Here's how you use it to move up the value chain and get jobs.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And I think AI is about doing, as we see AI is about doing what we do today, but doing it much with greater efficacy, doing it with a greater deal of focus, smartness and intelligence, whether that is governance, whether that is healthcare, whether that is education. So we see our deployment, the Prime Minister has made it very clear way back in 2018, that India's AI will be developed in India, but it will be also built around the Indian use case. We are not so concerned about whether the search engine that Google uses or Bing uses or anybody else uses is powered by AI or ChatGPT. But we certainly are focused on the fact that 1 billion Indians in the remotest part of India, when we design schemes for them, when we design programs for them, when we measure the efficacy, that we use AI, we use learning, we use the data sets and create, in my opinion, as the largest democracy, data-led governance, AI-led governance as the biggest use case in AI. AI-led healthcare as the biggest use case for AI. So we are quite happy with people innovating around the edges and on the fringes on search engines and other applications. But we are about, the India AI program is predominantly about harnessing the power of learning.
So one of the important aspects of that is that the entire India stack, I mean, let's face it.
Absolutely.
The reason why the rest of the world looks at India and says there's something really interesting happening out there is the India stack, public digital goods on top of which private sector can innovate. It's UPI, it's ONDP, it's in e-commerce, it's DigiLocker, all of that, I think. The potential to take that forward and to power it with AI and to use all of that data into other things, is that where you think the real opportunity is?
100%. You hit the nail on the head. I've announced this a few months ago when we had the India Stack Developers Conference, that as a startup today in India, you look at the India Stack and say, yes, this is a stack up of various applications, but I'm alerting you to the fact that all of these applications are going to have the next version, which are going to have AI embedded into it. So imagine today at the very basic level, we have an Aadhaar identity authentication platform powered by AI. Then you have the UPI, the financial platform, intermediation platform powered by AI that can learn through these millions and billions of transactions and do a much better job on either routing a transaction or identifying a person or whatever. So the India stack, the next version of it is going to be very, very significantly powered by AI. And that goes to what I said, the biggest use case that India AI will seek to develop applications for is on governance, democracy 2.0, and that type of application that impacts the lives of Indian people.
With that, we call it a wrap. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
On WION's Climate Tracker today, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to change the course of global water crisis. The first major United Nations conference on water kicks off in New York. Horn of Africa continues to face the brunt of Russia's invasion of Ukraine as the region experiences one of its worst droughts in 40 years. And as Indonesia builds its new capital in Borneo, will the Southeast Asian country prioritize wildlife in its plan? Watch WION's Climate Tracker at these times.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda or because they